Today I'm going to try to draw this church spire, and I told you there's a theme brewing with all the church stuff, here in Krakow, Poland. I went into this drawing with the same mindset as I did the flower from the other day, which I'm sure you've already watched, where I immediately sketch the details. But here I went a step further. I wanted to challenge myself a bit, so I decided to start from the top, drawing details as I work my way down. But instead of lightly sketching them in, and going back over them, I would complete each part as I went. So from the top of the spire to the bottom, like a photocopier. And if you scrub through the video, I have to say it's definitely satisfying to watch. The structure sort of materializes, just like I say, from top to bottom. So naturally, this all starts with the cross on top. I ignored everything underneath whatever my current position was at all times. And because I started at the top, I didn't have to worry about how much would eventually fit on the page. If I managed to only draw half before running out of space, so be it. The point was never to accurately represent the entire structure, and that made for a much more freeing process. Of course, I'm glad that didn't happen. I was able to get about as much of the spire as I'd planned. But if it had happened, had I only had room for the top third, the experiment still wouldn't necessarily have been a failure. The only reason for doing it this way in the first place was to challenge myself to commit. I've struggled a lot with hesitant lines, as you know. And slowly but surely, I've been building up certain ways to circumvent that. And this is one of those ways. By forcing myself to commit, there's a chance I could have ended up hesitating even more. Maybe the inability to sketch lightly and reevaluate later on would lead me to overthink, but that's thankfully not what happened. Instead, as you can see, I'm taking what almost resembles a doodle-like approach, and I think this is coming from all the right brain talk as of late. If you missed that, I think it was in video 21, but I never know for sure. You should be watching all the videos anyway, so I shouldn't have to say that. But yeah, I think that whole concept of the right brain stuff shifted my perspective, leading to a much more confident flow. By committing to these marks and lines immediately, I'm not only in a position of certainty, but also finality. Once they're down, I don't need to think about them anymore. I can do my best as I make my way down, and if something's a little off, so be it. Maybe I can fix it by altering what lies underneath, but even if not, that's totally fine. I'm releasing myself from the shackles of overanalysis, and that's not dramatic at all. Anyway, you may notice that although I'm going from top to bottom, and that my marks and lines are final, I'm still not speeding through the drawing. You're right, and for two reasons. One, primarily, I'm not there yet. I just don't have the skills to speed through something like this, and maybe I never will. Second, my actual hesitations in making marks, regardless of how fast I could or couldn't make them, is due to digesting the reference. When you see my hand pause or the pen hovering over the paper, it's because, most likely, I'm looking up at the structure instead of the paper, trying to make sense of its shape before making the next mark. While yes, this process is about committing to some extent, that doesn't mean committing blindly. I want to do what I can with the allotted time to make my drawing resemble the reference, even if that means just in spirit alone. Not everything needs to be perfect. I wouldn't have the skills to make that happen anyway. But that doesn't mean rush. I can commit to my lines and take my time all at once, and that's exactly my intention here. However, I do feel as though there's a line, pun intended. Going forward, all the puns will be intended. Refreshing my short-term memory of the reference is, I would think, a good practice to build, but I'm sure there comes a time when looking at the reference is hesitation manifested. If I can get better at building a mental model of the reference as a whole in the beginning and subsequently adding to that as I go, just, with short peaks here and there, I think that could beget confident lines in an even more graceful and timely manner. Right now, it's a little bit of jerkiness and, I forget the overall shape. So yeah, this I think would be a nice solution. So, as you can see here, some of these details are anything but accurate, which, of course, I've spoken about previously. But in this case, they're inaccurate not because I don't know how to render them, like large areas of foliage or innumerable other things, or that I've tried and failed to make them accurate, but actually, it's because I'm seeing them as abstract shapes that I just need to somehow get on the paper. For example, there are these little gargoyles encircling the spire below these peaked features. That's the best I can do. Um, I can see them from where I'm sitting. Not perfectly, but well enough to comprehend some of the smaller details. Had I attempted to draw in each one, I think it would have taken me a long time, but that's not even the issue. Well, it would be an issue because I don't want to be here all day. But that's not the main issue. It's actually this thing that happens whenever I try to draw something in my pocket sketchbook that's too detailed for its size. So take this reference, for example. At this size, the details that would make the gargoyles' heads and wings and bodies, respectively, using this pen would make them overly dark, disproportionate, dumb. The famous 3Ds of art. No, but seriously, I'm not exactly sure how to explain this, but it makes sense in practice. So imagine you're trying to draw, I don't know, a beach. You're in the sand, the tide is at its apex just a few feet away, and way off in the distance, there's a sailboat. On the sailboat, there's this guy, this salty old sailor guy, and he's playing a harmonica. I'm really telling a tale here. You're drawing in a sketchbook my size. If you manage to get that harmonica in there, I guess congratulations. You can probably also draw individual grains of sand. If you can't, and what I mean is that unless your drawing is hyper realistic with an immense, fantastic amount of detail, drawing the sailor, let alone his harmonica, will almost certainly make for a muddy stain of ink in an otherwise nice and probably even drawing. Uh, I'm afraid I'm still not making sense of this, but I don't have another example. Obviously, there are art styles that can make this happen in a purposely absurd or, I don't know, expressionist way. I'm probably not using that word right. But given this style that you're seeing, if you can call it that, I can't fit the gargoyles in without either dramatically zooming in, like drawing less of it, or, I don't know, using a significantly smaller tool. Why have I decided to dedicate all this time to this one specific topic? I don't know. Why do I do anything? I just wanted to talk about how, even if you're really good, depending on your canvas, some level of detail is just not going to make it. And by trying to include those details, they might actually just ruin the drawing. Actually, this is just one big excuse. I never wanted to draw the gargoyles in the first place. Okay, so you might be noticing that even though I've done what I set out to do, I'm still drawing in some things that are outside of my original scope. I did want to include some plants on either side if I had time, but I didn't plan on including anything beyond the spire itself in terms of the church. And yet, I couldn't help myself. For some reason, I had to include a small bit of that adjoining roof, and I can't tell you why. And it's something I don't necessarily see as a problem per se, but it's this weird impulse that I'm trying to understand so I can better control it. All right, and here we are. This one feels like with another 1,000 iterations, I'll get where I want to be. And I actually mean that in a good way. It's imperfect, obviously, in a multitude of ways, but there's something in there. There's like something under the surface that I can see, like a little spark. What do you think? What do you see? And how do you feel about the process I took to get here? Please let me know. And also subscribe if you aren't already, and all the rest of the stuff. I really appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one. It was a lot of fun. See you tomorrow. Thanks.